Michael and Catherine Bettendorf, both born in Germany and emigrated to this country in Bureau County, Illinois. In 1855 they were married. They made their home just outside of Bureau County where my father was a school teacher by profession. My older brother, William Peter, was born while they lived in Peru, and then the family moved to Missouri and eventually to Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, where my father worked for the United States government. And there, on October 10th, in 1864, I was born. At about the age of 8, my family decided to return to Peru, Illinois, and my father resumed his academic career, and that's where my brother picked up his inventing career. I worked for the Peru Plow Company, first as a machinist and then later as a foreman. My brother and I decided to set off and make a name for ourselves, and so we moved here to Davenport, Iowa, where we established the Bettendorf Metal Wheel Works to manufacture my brother's invention, which was a revolutionary wheel design that changed wheel construction in farm equipment. Our company grew, and we were looking at subsidiaries in other places. But before that occurred, in 1888, I returned to Peru, Illinois, to take Elizabeth Ohl as my beautiful bride. Elizabeth was born on August 22nd in 1865 in Reading, Pennsylvania. Her parents were George and Sibylla Ohl. They moved to Peru and remained there for the rest of their lives. Now, since I was already living and working in Davenport, I took my bride, we moved immediately here and made our home on Western Avenue. I became the plant superintendent, and then our first son, Edwin, was born. Now in 1890, our plant had expanded so much that I moved my family to Springfield, Ohio, to be the manager of our new branch plant company that we had just built there. I returned 3 years later, however, pardon me, because my brother had decided to sell his patent to his partners, and he resigned from the company so that he could work full-time inventing. I followed suit with him a year later, and we developed the Bettendorf Axle Company. We located our company between Scott and Ripley Streets on the Davenport waterfront. Our company grew and expanded tremendously during this time. We were the largest foundry in the Middle West. This was the time when my second son was born, Bill. Bill attended kindergarten at St. Catherine's School in Davenport. There's more about the school later, intertwined with our family. Now, our plant continued to grow. We kept taking in orders. We expanded from wheel manufacture to full rail car manufacture, and we outgrew the facility. Besides the fact that we had 2 disastrous fires that forced us to rebuild the plant. So we looked for a different spot, and we found one in the outskirts of Davenport in the town of Gilbert. And so on January 1st, 1903, the new Bettendorf Axle Company plant opened for business in Gilbert, Iowa. That very same month, a petition was sent to the state of Iowa to rename Gilbert Bettendorf in honor of my brother and me and the building of our factory there. That was the same year that Richard Steiff started designing his first teddy bears. And my brother and I saw an opportunity. And so Bill and Joe Bear became the mascots of the Bettendorf Company. Now our company grew, we added a foundry, and that made us a full-scale operation from start to finish. We got rid of the wheel design business and we concentrated solely on railcar design. Our largest contract was a $15 million contract from Union Pacific that we completed in a year. Now in 1910, I lost both my business partner and my brother when William passed away. At the time of his death, William had 50 patents to his name, 25 pending. He was buried just over on the next ridge with his first wife, Mary, their 2 young children who died in the diphtheria epidemic, and his second wife, Elizabeth. Now the company was left to me. We'd become a world-renowned company. We had offices in Chicago, St. Louis, Buffalo, and New York. We shipped to Mexico, Canada, Germany, Romania, South Africa, New Zealand, and Australia. The Bettendorf name was so well known in the iron industry that a Pittsburgher once commented to a Davenport businessman, "Davenport, why, that's near Bettendorf, isn't it?" Just to show how renowned we had become. Now, as we continued to grow and expand, life was grand. And so I decided in 1914 to build my country estate. And so I contracted with Arthur Ebling to design a 3-story, 30-room English manor, complete with swimming pool, reflecting pools, gardens, formal gardens, tea house, tennis courts, and a greenhouse to rival Vanderveer. It was a marvelous home. Matter of fact, we actually used people in our factory to help us build the building while railroad car orders had slacked off so that we wouldn't have to do layoffs. In 1915, my wife and I moved in with our 2 children, Edwin and Bill, and my parents, Michael and Catherine, and we made the mansion our home. We traveled extensively around the world, collecting artwork, furniture, and exotic plants to decorate our beautiful estate. Parties galore. It was a marvelous place. We also, though, thought very carefully about the workers. I established the Bettendorf Company Mutual Aid Association, which enabled workers to set aside funds in the event that they might become incapacitated at work. This was long before Iowa passed any workmen's compensation laws. And of course, 1929, stock market crash reverberated throughout the country. We were not unaffected. Railroad car orders slackened, workers were idle. We dropped production in 1930, and by the end of 1931, I was forced to close my plant. 18 months later, on May 16th, 1933, I died of a heart attack. Some would say I just couldn't stand seeing my plant silent. Regrettably, upon my death, it was discovered that both I and the company were bankrupt. As a trustee of the Davenport Bank and Trust Company, I had co-signed many loans for businesses and individuals and paid on those loans through the Depression. We also continued to pay our workers as much as we could while the plant was shut down. But those, in combination with back taxes from the federal government due to insufficient work orders, caused our eventual demise. Now, I, though, was a firm believer in life insurance policies. And upon my death, I was the most insured man in the state of Iowa, totaling policies on my death of over $1 million. However, it was left to my sons, Bill and Edwin, to return the Bettendorf Company to profitability, which they did quite handily. My wife continued to live in the mansion until her death in 1941. Our son Edwin, who was divorced and had no children, lived in the guest house. William and his family moved into the house and made it their home until 1952. Today, it's no longer a family residence, but it is the home of Rivermont Collegiate, which had its roots as St. Catherine's School here in Davenport. If you'll remember, that's where my son went to kindergarten, and his 2 daughters, Jane and Sally, attended and graduated. So if ever you want to see a glorious example of English country architecture, stop on by at Rivermont Collegiate and they will gladly give you a tour of that gorgeous mansion. I wonder, my father, the school teacher, wonder if he ever imagined that that great, beautiful building would ever become a school. Thank you much for your attention and have a great visit.